As a product, I love the Cintiq Pro 17 that came out about 2 years back. In a lot of ways, it was the perfect drawing tablet, but I didn't recommend it because it was $2,500. And that was before you added in the $500 adjustable stand. It took me a while. I didn't quite get it in that initial video review I did, but I did start to see what Wacom was going for, which was a pen display that was extraordinarily color accurate, on par with some of the most high-end monitors on the market. But this left a huge gap in their product lineup. Most people, most pros, need color accuracy. Yes, absolutely. But not that much color accuracy. So Wacom had these really high-end displays, and then they had their like budget Wacom One products that I wasn't all that thrilled with. And what I wanted was a really good drawing tablet with a really good Wacom pen, and there just wasn't a really good option. There was some older stuff, but that was too old. But this new Cintiq 16 coming at $700 with the Pro Pen 3 is that Goldilocks device for a lot of professional illustrators. You gonna eat that? So let's open up this box. I opened it up upside down because I don't know why. But it did come in this nice fabric sleeve that kept it safe while I did that. The tablet has what I would consider kind of a standardish thickness. Huion, XP Pen, even Wacom make thinner displays, but that's not to say this isn't super thick. The edges are kind of squared off. That makes it feel thicker than other pen displays, but it's not really. Another thing you're going to notice right away on this is there are no shortcut keys along the face of it. You're going to have to rely on your keyboard or pick up one of those fancy remote things of some kind. Now along the back, there's 2 fold-out feet, so you can set this at a 20-degree angle without needing an extra stand, which is very nice. But if you do want to get one of those fancy stands, it does have a VESA mount compatible like screw holes along the back. In the second box, we have all of our accessories. There's 2 cables, both USB Type-C, but they differ in quality. One is power transmitting and the other one is for the display. Don't mix that up. That's kind of important. Fortunately, the power cable is thinner and it has like a little sticker on it to let you know. Now with my setup here, I only needed 1 cable. I didn't need the power cable. So I could just run the USB-C cable right into my Mac or right into my PC, and it worked great. But if you can't draw enough power from your computer, there's also a little power brick here if you need it. You can also use an HDMI cord to connect this. So if you wanted to use USB and HDMI, you can do that. One thing to keep in mind though is this does not come with an HDMI cable, and you're going to need a mini HDMI. Now along the back, there's a nice place for cords to pop in. So when it lies down, those cords aren't going to get in the way, or it's not going to like damage the edges. They're not going to fray. That's really nice. You also don't get that thing you get with some tablets where the cords are sticking directly out the sides. And there's even a little plastic piece here for cable management. There's this little key thing that you can take out, and there's pen nibs in there. I think I had a hard time opening it. Let's play Read the Instruction Manual. Okay, this is how it works. It slides into the little slot along the side of the tablet and becomes a place to store your pen. Also, the back of this thing twists off and there's 2 extra nibs, so I was right about that. You may now close the instruction manual. This video isn't sponsored, so I'm gonna shout out my courses, which are really designed for like beginners, people just jumping into art if you've taken any tutorials and thought, man, I'm in over my head. I feel like I need a basic course before I take these more advanced ones. That's what my Learn to Draw in 60 Days course is designed for. I will link it down below, bradsartschool.com. On with the review. One thing I do want to take a closer look at is the display. How good does it look? Is it good enough? I pulled open a drawing I originally did on the iPad with this purple and this yellow, and the colors really popped, and I was really happy with that. They look good. The display is a bit bigger than 1440p. It has a resolution of 2560 by 1600. And I think this pixel density looks really good on a 16-inch display. If they went with full HD like 1080, you'd run into that problem where you definitely see pixels at 16 inches, but you don't necessarily need a full 4K display. I love this as a compromise. Something to note here is that this is not a touch display. They do have a touch option available on their new 24-inch, which I'll be reviewing in a week or 2. Subscribe if you want to see that review. Even if you don't want to see it, subscribe anyway. But they don't have a touch screen on the 16. The screen also has an anti-glare coating on it, which diffuses the light, but also gives a little bit of a texture so the pen can grip the screen. It's also a laminated display. Almost all displays are laminated nowadays. nowadays. Basically, there's no distance between the screen and the glass above it. But those older screens that I went about earlier in the video, those were not laminated. I mentioned that the Pro version of the Cintiq is crazy color accurate, but it's worth mentioning here that this is no slouch with a 99% DCI P3 rating and 100% sRGB color range. Here's a neat touch. We have all tried to adjust the brightness or the color on a monitor before, and you're clicking buttons along the top or along the bottom trying to figure out the right one to select the right setting, and you're constantly accidentally drilling in too deep or exiting the settings altogether. It is literally the worst user interface on the planet, yet it has been like this for 30 years. Here, you toggle it on with the button along the side, and then you just use the pen to navigate. It's so easy. I like easy things. Of course, the thing I'm probably gonna gush about the most is the pen. This is Wacom's Pro Pen 3. This is one of the best pens, if not the best pen on the market today. It's just wonderful. I just love to use it. As soon as I picked it up and I just started doing my little drawing doodles after I first plugged it in, I was like, oh, I'm home. I do like other pens too. I like Huiyan's pen. I like XP pens, but there's something about it I can't quite put my finger on. This feels so good. Now, the pen itself doesn't have as many configurations as what comes with the Cintiq Pro, but the tech under the hood, the actual sensors and that sort of thing, those are the same as the Pro pens, is what you get in that Cintiq Pro or the Intuos Pro. So you get your really clean lines here. The levels of pressure are like really calibrated well. There's a really nice initial activation rate. Everything you want in a Wacom pen is here. So what isn't here? Well, the Pro Pen 3 is a customizable pen. On the Wacom Cintiq Pros, it comes with a bunch of little parts. So if you want a thicker barrel, you can just add a thicker, wider part to the top of the pen and get the grip you want. There's little weights that you can stick inside the pen that make it just like feel a little better. I like a well-weighted pen. This allows you to do that. If you put the weight in one way, the weight kind of slides to the back. If you put the weight in another way, it's more like centrally weighted. If you just want a really light pen, you don't have to put the weight in at all. There's also the buttons along the side of the pen. You could actually like pop this off and take the buttons off if you want it. You could make it a 2-button pen, no button pen. So the pen that comes with the Wacom Cintiq Pro and the Intuos Pro has all of those options. A few of those options are not available here, but some of them are. So here's what's been taken out. You get the base slim pen, but you do not get a wide barrel option if that's what you want. It does have the weight in there, so you can add the weight, you could spin the weight around, and you do get a button removal place. So if you can either get the 3 buttons, which is the default, that's what it comes with, or you could get no buttons, but that's pretty much it. And there's also some extra gray, like the felt tip nibs, that are included with this as well. Now, if you're thinking maybe I'll just pick up a second Pro Pen 3, you can do that. It's kind of expensive. It's $125. If all you really wanted was just a wider body pen, you can pick up an extra barrel off of Wacom's website for like 25 bucks. When I do my slow angled line tests, these are just crisp and beautiful. It makes me just want to kiss a chef. Wait, then what does chef's kiss mean? I wholeheartedly recommend this thing. I was worried about this product when Wacom first announced it. Years back, they had a non-pro Cintiq line, and they really cheaped out on the screens. They weren't laminated. They just didn't pay attention to a lot of the little details. And even the prices then were kind of high. The Wacom One line from about 2 years back now, it was more expensive than the competition, and I just didn't feel like the quality was as high. With this Cintiq, I feel like the attention to detail is still here, even though this is not their pro level tablet. You still get the Pro Pen 3. The little interface touches, like the way you change the settings, are really nice. There are feet along the back. There's even a VESA mount. They could have gone with an HD display, but they went with a higher pixel density 1440-ish P display instead. That is a big difference, and those little differences really start to add up. I often say in these videos that I'm okay with a company cutting corners if they are cutting the right corners. When I look at the screen quality, when I look at the pen quality, when I look at all of these things, I feel like they have made the right compromises here. Sure, we don't get that top-end color accuracy, but the colors still pop. They're still vibrant. And most importantly, when you look at Huiyan or XP Pen and the things that they're offering, Wacom's price here is only $100 or $200 higher than similarly spec'd devices. And I know a lot of people who just want Wacom. It's the brand name they trust. That's the thing they want. They just couldn't afford it for several years. Maybe they're a little hesitant to go with a Chinese brand that maybe doesn't have the same kind of support that they need. Maybe they need their product to get replaced or repaired or something down the line. They're worried about that sort of thing. Those are real concerns. But now the premium that you have to pay for that, I feel, is very reasonable. I got a bunch of questions from you guys. Let's roll through some of these. I would like to know if there is still fan noise in the Cintiq devices. I love my Pro 24, but the fan noise is driving me crazy, and you're not alone. A lot of people have said this. Now, the good news here is with the 16, there is no fan, and I believe with the 24, there is also no fan. Another thing I forgot to mention in this review is that there's also no hotspot on this thing, which is really nice. That happens with some tablets, but this one stays pretty cool. I didn't need a glove. For the Cintiq 16, I saw that you can run it off a single USB-C Thunderbolt cable for power and the display. Yes, that is the good news here. On my computer and my MacBook, I could do that. You might not be able to if you have a more recent Mac, which sounds like what you have there. Yes, you're going to be fine. What's up with the thickness of these devices? At what point does it make more sense to get a Samsung Galaxy Tab with an S Pen and be more portable? The funny thing about looking at pictures of these devices is that they do look really thick, but for tablets that are sitting on your desk, they're kind of standard. It's about the same width as the Huion or the XP Pen or that sort of thing. Now, Wacom did release something called a Move Ink last year. That thing is super thin. That thing is like tablet thin. It's only 13 inches. It's kind of comparable to this in some ways, though. That one does have an OLED screen, so it gets a little shinier, gets a little brighter. It's also using the Pro Pen. That's pretty cool. But since these are anchored to your desk, they don't really feel that thick. It's not really a problem since you're not carrying it around like you are like a Samsung Android tablet or an iPad. How does the new Cintiq line compare with the Cintiq Pros? Do you think the Cintiqs are worth replacing a previous gen Cintiq? So generally, my answer to should you upgrade is your tech still working? And if that is the case, maybe you just hang on as long as you can. Now, since you mentioned that you have a previous gen Cintiq, if you have a Cintiq Pro, I would say no. These are not worth upgrading to necessarily unless you really need a new one. If something's actually wrong with yours, it's not operating properly anymore. But if you have the non-Pro Cintiq they released, 5 years ago now? The screen on those, I was not impressed with that at all. The screen on this is a dramatic upgrade over that. It's so much better. And in that case, this might be a worthy upgrade. A comparison side by side with the OG 16, please. The new ones seem to be almost as if you've taken off the outer bezel. So this is a slightly different question. We're just kind of talking about bezel size because the bezels on this are smaller. Now, I have seen a lot of different sized bezels on these kind of drawing tablets for a while, and in this case, it's not bothering me much. Sometimes if you're drawing all the way to the edge, your hand's gonna fall off. Since I'm using Clip Studio or Photoshop or that sort of thing as I'm demonstrating in this video, there's tools over there, so my palm isn't sliding all the way to the edge. It isn't going all the way off. So I never really ran into that problem. You might, depending on what drawing app you're using and how you're setting up all your palettes, where your hand is resting when you're using this. I really care about the thickness of glass. Thinner glass means less parallax effect. Please. That's the great news here is the old versions of just the mid-tier Cintiqs. I mentioned this before. This screen is so much better. It is a laminated screen this time around. You just don't have that gap, so you don't have the parallax. It's such a big upgrade over the last generation because of that. In fact, when that last generation Cintiq was rolling out with not the Pros, but the last generation Cintiq, it was at a time where Huion and XP Pen were starting to laminate their displays. So Wacom was rolling out these devices that cost a little bit more than the Huion, and it wasn't as good as the Huion. And it was kind of that first time where it was like, it's hard to recommend a Wacom product. That's why I feel so good about like this mid-level product. It costs a little bit more, but it's comparable. It's still really good. It's just as good in a lot of ways, and you're getting that Wacom pen, which a lot of people are going to say is better. Curious about the new accessory situation on the new Cintiqs. I did mention this just briefly in the review, talking about the pen and how you could buy an extra barrel if you want to. This does not come with a mini HDMI cord, which is something that you might need if you need to use an HDMI cord. So in that regard, yeah, you might have to pick up an accessory. Since there are some feet on the bottom of this tablet, you're not going to need to buy a stand. That was a problem with like the Wacom ones and that sort of thing. I think the Cintiq Pro, the most expensive one, just didn't come with any kind of stand at all, not even a cheap one. So that was really clunky, and you had to just invest a lot of money to even get that off your desk to make it work. Here, I feel like everything you need is in the box, unless of course you need like that HDMI cord. So this is a question I'm probably going to answer in my next video, because technically they're asking about the 24 here. They want to know, is it good enough for pros who don't need all the features of a pro? And absolutely yes. I think that was the main message I was trying to get across at the beginning of the video, which is I think this is really a pro level tablet. It's just that Wacom, in their own kind of way of marketing these things, they wanted to have their super pro tablet out there for like the hardcore movie studio designers and that sort of thing who need that epic color accuracy. But I think for the vast majority of illustrators, this one is definitely color accurate enough and good looking enough. And so even though this isn't called the Pro, I think if you're a pro illustrator, this is going to do you good. So those are the questions. If you have a question about an upcoming product that you see that's coming out that you think I should review, pop it in the comments. You never know, you might make it into one of these videos. Don't forget, I rank all of this tech that I review over my website, bradsartschool.com, where I also have my courses. Thank you all for watching. I'll talk to you in a couple of days.